He's a visionary, the future, the progressive political man, the Democrat. He represents the left of the Democratic Party. Okay, Dr. Bill.
Dr. Bill. Okay, there you go. If you didn't get a sticker, I've got more stickers. I've got PDA sweaters, these little cards. And I've got a clipboard. If you aren't on the, oh, great, thanks, Charlie. If you don't get the Progressive Democrats of America Cairo, from Egypt today, is the power of organization of people coming together, right? Like Margaret Mead said, there's nothing really that, even a small group of people, that's a pretty large group of people there, but nothing that they can't accomplish when they get together and with like minds. So, so by all means, if you already get a lot of emails, then good for you. You're my hero. Here's one more email. Coalition to make effective change. I want to thank Charlie and y'all for having me today to talk about that. What we're talking about, making political progress in the post-Bush era is the topic. And at any point, feel free to jump in. I'm going to cover a couple things. I was last year, I thank goodness for Google Archives. I could archive when I was here last was September of '08. And yeah, 2.5 years already. It was pretty amazing, all that time that's gone by. And now we have Barack Obama as the president. We were at the time, we were kind of poised for that kind of change and the elimination of Bush-Cheney. How about that? Everyone in here worked their butts off to make happen, and I appreciate that. I've been a Democratic Club president myself twice, and on our County Central Committee currently even, and also an officer of the County Central Committee in Orange County. We seem to be up against a lot of odds there, and some of y'all are from there even. We have actually over 1,000 people signed on the Progressive Democrats of America in Orange County. So, so there are progressives even, liberals, Democrats, all over the place, and I'm happy to be here with you. I think at the time, 2.5 years ago, I'd take us back for a minute so we can see how we're going, ahead now. At the time, we were talking about change. We were talking about even what, how to look at things newly so that we can make progress. For example, the whole idea of what a progressive is. I'm the what's known as the California State Coordinator for PDA, Progressive Democrats of America. That's our flyer there, thanks. My mission is to recruit folks to start up chapters of PDA throughout California. There are some 20 of them already. And you might ask, well, why do we need, to distinguish progressive Democrats? And back then, 2.5 years ago, I mentioned that I thought, I'm both a liberal and a progressive. And it means something else to be a progressive, I think, than to be a liberal, frankly. And I like to point out the difference that really a progressive is a natural opposite of a conservative. Conservatives want to keep things the same. And, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. We need to make progress. So, so that's what a progressive is.
How does that differ from liberal?
A liberal, I'd say the opposite of a liberal is not a conservative, it's Dick Cheney. It's someone who's with a heart of stone, who doesn't care. They're only about themselves and self-sufficiency, and they could care less about the other people who don't thrive as a consequence. So, so I'm a liberal. It's important to me for social justice. It's important to me also for economic justice and to make progress. I think that's what we need to look at, especially now, frankly. And the Blue Dogs, for example, consider themselves kind of conservative Democrats. They actually call themselves fiscally conservative and socially liberal. But I would submit to you that most of them are just the opposite. Most of them, they don't have a problem at all about spending tons of money on the military and other kinds of things that are, frankly wasted, or in fact making us worse off in the worldview. and they're certainly not socially liberal because they don't protect a woman's right to choose. They don't protect the rights of immigrants and people to get a decent job and earn a living in America. So so the Blue Dogs, I would say to you, are kind of what we call Republican light. And what's the next step? I mentioned 2.5 years ago, PDA. Our focus is a concept. Actually, our strategy is a concept that that Tom Hayden, I think, coined the phrase inside-outside strategy for making political progress, and that's as regards to the party. So I mentioned I was the Democratic Club president. I'm on the County Central Committee. I go to the state conventions with Ken and lots of other people, crazy political junkies that we are. That's the inside the party track. Then the outside the party is what do we do in the social justice movement or economic justice movement that pushes the party to do the right thing, that stands up for what we believe in as Democrats as opposed to what they believe in as Republicans. And I'm of the persuasion that, like I said, we don't need third parties. We need a strong second party to oppose, them or they, the other. So, so the outside track, as opposed to the inside track, the party apparatus, would be, say, what we did to affect change in 2008. We were out on the streets. We were protesting the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan and our presence in Afghanistan. Many of us felt that these are illegal and immoral actions that the United States took on, and it motivated us to get out on the street. We were out on the streets protesting the Koch brothers and the influence of corporations in the elections. These are outside actions that push politicians, push our neighbors and friends, hopefully even win hearts and minds. And I think we succeeded in pushing out Bush and Cheney as a result. We passed out is a program we call brown bag lunch vigils, where instead of a mass mobilization, which is great if it could happen, in the streets of Cairo, and wonderful in terms of the outcome, is not feasible here necessarily. A lot of us can't go to Washington, D.C. or even L.A. for a big rally or something, but we can go to our Congress member's office, Congo Mac. We call her Mary Bono Mac's office, and once a month. Actually, we kind of cut that back to every other month now if you look at the PDA calendar. But we're outside her office. We're outside a whole lot of offices across the country, about 100 of them every month, and that is some credible standing in the halls of Congress. When we talk to Congress members, our group inside Congress is what's known as the Congressional Progressive Caucus, where we have heroes like Barbara Lee from the United States of Berkeley, and Bob Filner from San Diego, and Sam Farr from Monterey Santa Cruz, and the Iraq recession, that we had spent ourselves into a recession over the obsession of the neocons, basically, with this occupation and presence in the Middle East, which is just crazy to most of us, I think, in this room, that that anyone would think that occupying a foreign land is somehow going to be in our interest ultimately, when when all it does is anger the people who are there and say, what are you doing in my country, get out of here. And basically the Middle East now, of course, is changing, thank goodness, in a nonviolent, popular, movement, and which is just fantastic to see. In Tunisia first, of course, and now Egypt, and we'll see, what else is going to happen there. But the concept of issues and national issues, seems like a no-brainer to us, that that we want health care, not warfare. We want education, not warfare. We want energy conversion, not warfare. And one says, how are we going to solve this global warming thing, this climate change thing, which is very real and happening as we speak. The answer is, we're not going to solve it at all until we have resources put into it. It's a question of priorities. You go to the PDA website, pdaamerica.org, we have a link for something called the National Priorities Project, and you can see how much Palm Desert spends on these wars. You can see that, and it hasn't gone down, unfortunately. We're leaving Iraq, but we put in more resources into Afghanistan. So, you know, the amount we've spent has not gone down, the total amount. And we're still basically bankrupting our country. And, you know, John Boehner, however you say his name, you know, when he says we can't afford the spending that we're doing, I agree with him at that point, you know. And we cannot afford the national spending. And that's, you know, because as we know, especially our military budget, which is larger than all the other nations in the world combined. Completely unnecessary. Is this co-war mentality? You know, is this all because of what, you know, 19 people with box cutters can do? I mean, that's absurd. That kind of action, that's a police action. Our medical school of public health. And they collect data, as scientists do, they're scientists, and publish in their journals, in scientific journals. When you look at the data, a system like Medicare saves tremendously, like I said, on the order of 4 or 5% overhead instead of the 30% you have in private healthcare. So it's not, you know, you might think that because the government fronts the bill that it's paying all this extra money for things. That's actually not the case, because the government then is a large negotiator, right? It's like a pool, and they can negotiate down prices on things. Another, for example, is Kaiser, the system I work for. Kaiser is a better deal than Costco. Okay, you got your big box stores, which are better than, you know, walking into Walgreens or something, right? So people say, oh no, I'm going to go get mine. I got a card for, you know, $5 prescriptions at CVS. At Kaiser, you get it for $2. Okay, because they can negotiate with the brand name companies, you know, Squibb, Pfizer, all those companies. They negotiate as a large group negotiation to bring the prices down. And Kaiser actually sells I'm not pushing Kaiser right now. I'm just using it as an example. In pharmaceuticals, at least, they sell their products to their members at cost.
Have you worked with the caucus system in the state party?
Thank you for mentioning that. I actually ran over that on my little list here. I shouldn't have. I'm actually on the board of the Progressive Caucus of the state party, and
maybe you should be the chair.
Yeah, well, thanks. Maybe I don't. The hole in my head isn't big enough. I need to fill it with more stuff. What he's referring to is within the state party, Clark.
Yeah.
Thanks, Clark. Clark's referring to is within the state party, California Democratic Party, the CDP. There are caucus groups, and we have the largest at present caucus group within the state party is what's called the Progressive Caucus, and so I've been very involved in that as the California State Coordinator for PDA, and so, you know, my mission is to develop groups all around the state for PDA about as regards our issues that progressives, I think, especially, you know, feel are important. So I've been involved with that. It may be, you know, and sorry if other people are in other caucuses, but you know, blatant advertisement here is that it may, in my opinion, is the single most important reason to go to a state convention nowadays is the Progressive Caucus meeting.
Well, the veterans too.
And we have very, you know, vibrant, raucous even caucus meetings there. And even if anyone here delegate to the state convention, Clark, Ken, of course, cool. Charlie will be there. So, you know, if you're not a delegate, meaning you're not on the state committee, which is about 3,000 of us, I think, on the state committee, you can still go to convention.